If the hospital wing that saved your child was built with dirty money, would you cheer, or would you wash your hands until they bleed? Tonight, we follow a woman who held the key to a bright city that ran on quiet deals and pretty speeches. Listen close, because the same bargain lives in every town that loves a clean story more than a true one. I will take you inside the room and keep you there until the light hurts a little. We start in the middle, because that is where the pulse is loud. A gala hums under glass chandeliers, and a donor wall glows like a warm screen. The Veil Initiative throws its annual miracle party, and the city calls it Hope in a Tuxedo. The mayor waits behind the stage with a smile that could pass any audit. His name is Gideon Vale, and he knows how to sound like mercy with a deadline. Next to him stands Mara Ellis, who is the one person that can end his night with a single envelope.
You asked me to bring the ledger, and I did.
We are building hospitals faster than we build excuses.
She slides the envelope into her clutch and nods like a soldier at the end of a shift. He touches her elbow and calls it trust because he does not dare to call it need. The crowd chants his name, and the room drinks the sound like it is free champagne. Before this night, Mara lived on lists and clocks and spare batteries for every emergency. She grew up where buses were late and promises were later. She believed in systems because feelings never paid the rent. Gideon hired her when a small scandal tried to bite his ankle, and she muzzled it in 24 hours. After that, he kept her close because she could make ugly things quiet. A young podcaster named Jonah Kincaid circled the story like a kite that smells wind. He believed that every halo hit a smudge if you stood at the right angle. A community organizer named Ava Rowan kept showing up with clipboards and tired eyes and clean facts. She believed that help without dignity is only a softer kind of harm. These three people made a triangle around the mayor, and each line pulled the others tight. The first small storm looked like mercy on a cold week. A shelter closed for a sudden inspection on the day snow hit the river. The city said it was about safety and wires and load limits. Phones lit up, and people lined the block, and rage shook but had nowhere to go. Mara moved hotel vouchers like a blackjack dealer, and cameras loved it.
I mapped the hotel owners, and they all fund the same committee.
Jonah posted a bright graphic with neat circles and sharp arrows. People scrolled and frowned, and told themselves that at least no one slept on ice. The storm passed, and the city sighed, and the vouchers kept printing. Mara filed the emails and saved the texts and tied a red string around that night in her mind. The second storm wore a lab coat and handed out free bandages. An overnight clinic opened in a closed school, and the headlines kissed it. The clinic was a partnership between City Hall and a tech firm called Apex Site and the Veil Initiative. It promised quick care and long hours, and no one asked about the paperwork because health feels holy. Ava liked the relief, but she did not like the consent forms with tiny type and fast pens.
People are signing away their data for a painkiller.
Mara told herself that privacy can wait when fevers cannot. She told herself that clean numbers could fund clean rooms. Gideon told everyone that innovation is just kindness that learned to count faster. Jonah asked one question out loud, and it was about who owns the breath you exhale in a waiting room. The third storm smelled like smoke, and it did not go away when you opened a window. A warehouse caught fire, and 2 temp workers did not come home. The audits were up to date, and the badges were valid, and the files were tidy. The firm that ran the site had friends who liked ribbon cuttings and open bars. Gideon called it a tragic anomaly, and Mara wrote the line and then stared at a sink for 10 minutes.
I have a memo with your initials that warns about rushed checks.
I fix what breaks today. Do you let me fix what breaks tomorrow?
Are you the storm or the shelter?
Jonah stayed off the record because he is not a monster, and he knows that truth breaks bones if you throw it wrong. Mara saved the memo to a hidden drive and added a note that said, "Look again when you can breathe." The Veil Initiative sat at the center like a clean vault that smells faintly of lemons. Donations went in, and projects came out, and every exchange wore white gloves. Apex site donated cameras and algorithms and called it a gift to public safety. City Hall gave abatements to donors who gave grants to neighborhoods that lost leases the week after. If you drew the loop wide enough, it looked like progress. Gideon liked to say that perfect is the enemy of people not freezing on bus benches. He liked to say that purity is a hobby best enjoyed after the bills are paid. He was very good at being almost right in rooms where people needed him to be perfect. Mara knew all of this, and still set his calendar, and still found his jacket, and still walked 5 steps behind him when cameras moved like bees. She told herself that history grades on a curve.
We wash dirty money by forcing it to do clean work.
You cannot call it washing if the stain stays on the people we move out.
If I fall, then men without brakes take my place.
That is the kind of sentence that sounds like duty and tastes like fear. Mara filed it under necessary evil and bought a stronger folder. The algorithm arrived with a friendly name and a slide deck that smiled. It flagged risk blocks and sent extra patrols to places with small kitchens and large families. Crimes fell on paper and rose in rooms where no one counted. Ambulances took longer to cross town because the system kept nudging them into loops that looked efficient on a dashboard. Ava kept a list of names that were not numbers, and she read them out loud in church basements.
Good policy does not hide behind a screen.
The code is clean, but the dataset is dirty.
Gideon nodded at both and promised a review in the quarter after next. Mara started sleeping with the ledger under her bed like a kid with a flashlight. She told herself that she would stop the worst contracts, even if she had to break the good ones to reach them. A family from the warehouse fire came to the office with quiet hands and a photograph that made everyone stand up. There was talk of a scholarship in the name of their daughter and a settlement that would help the younger son keep his school uniform clean. The legal team brought a confidentiality agreement and placed it on the table like a hot plate. It did not look cruel, and it did not sound cruel, but it was heavy, and it waited for a signature. Mara signed as a witness and felt the ink climb her wrist like a thin vine.
I just priced their grief, and I did it with nice paper.
We gave them a future that a court would have delayed for years.
A future should not demand silence to keep its shape.
That afternoon, she called Jonah, but did not speak when he answered.
Say the word, and I stop the series for now.
She hung up and wrote the word later on a sticky note and stuck it to her screen where only she could read it. Award season came because awards follow clean rooms and neat charts. Gideon flew to accept a global prize for ethical governance and used his best voice on a stage that loves heroes. Back home, he asked Mara to destroy the ledger, and he promised her a new role with a new title and a new salary.
You are my clean hands, and the city needs that more than it needs a spectacle.
The city needs a mirror, even if it shows bad angles.
He set his hand on hers, and it was not romantic, and it was not fatherly, and it was something heavier than both. Now we return to the gala, because that is where the rope goes tight. The donor wall cycles through names that sound like ships and paintings. The program lists the clinic and the shelter vouchers and the new youth center with high windows and a basketball court. Ava stands outside with protest signs that say good deeds and bad deals, and she does not yell because she wants people to listen instead of clap back. Jonah waits with a recorder and a battery pack and a calm face that hides a racing mind.
If you are going to break it, then do it clean.
I will not run ruin porn, and I will not guess.
Mara breathes 5 times and feels each breath come with a bill. She thinks of a bus that used to be late and a job that fixed time for other people. She thinks of children who slept in hotel rooms with thin curtains and of nurses who steered around privacy warnings. Gideon walks on stage, and the room goes soft the way rooms do when they are ready to forgive a lot in exchange for a good story.
We are the city that does not wait for miracles because we build them.
Applause fills the corners, and even the quiet places feel busy. Mara opens the control tablet for the donor wall and switches from the public list to the private ledger she compiled. It is a simple swap that a tech cannot undo without a password she never shared. The wall blinks and then shows two columns that do not belong together but do not lie. On the left are scholarships and clinic beds and tutor hours. On the right are settlements and abatements and eviction notices. Each gift is paired with a cost, like a duet that was never meant to be sung. The room inhales and does not finish the breath. Gideon turns and sees his good deed standing next to his receipts.
Turn that off, and we will explain.
I will introduce you, and I will not explain you.
She walks to the podium with calm steps and looks at the first row where money usually sits.
Thank you for giving, and thank you for taking. And tonight we practice honesty by putting both in the same light.
Some people laugh because they think it is a joke, and some people do not because they have learned to hear danger in warm voices. Jonah moves without running because he knows how fear spots a chase. He takes the red string folder from Mara near the stage door and slips it into a bag that smells like coffee and batteries.
I will verify every line, and I will cut anything that hurts victims for sport.
Do not make me a hero, and do not make him a monster.
I will make them numbers and names and choices.
Ava lifts her phone, and the chant outside fades because people are watching the screen. Gideon does not shout because he understands crowds better than he understands himself.
We did hard things fast because people are eating, and this is what triage looks like.
That sentence saves him for some and sinks him for others, and both sides feel like truth. The board calls an emergency session, and the security team pretends to walk, not run. Mara steps away from the podium and feels her legs shake only when a curtain hides them. The next week is all lines and meetings and quiet arguments in rooms without windows. Gideon resigns from city roles, but stays at the initiative while an external review sets up shop in a borrowed office. Apex site stock dips like a respectful bow, and then steadies because markets forgive what they can price. The clinic stays open with new consent forms that fit on one page and use words that teenagers can parse without a tutor. The shelter inspection process gets a citizen witness program that does not solve everything, but stops the worst tricks. Jonah releases a series called The Kind Knife, and each episode pairs a clean benefit with the cost that bought it. He does not use leaked photos of crying mothers, and he never raises his voice, and he lets silence carry more weight than adjectives. Ava builds a public contradictions ledger that any person can audit at a library computer for free. It lists projects and donors and abatements and outcomes, and invites people to add what is missing. The ledger becomes boring in the best way because power hates boredom when it belongs to the public. Mara leaves her job without a press release and rents a small flat over a bakery that starts mixing dough at 3 in the morning. She finds the sound helpful because it reminds her that work can be loud and honest at the same time. She keeps her phone off for a month and learns the names of the birds that sit on the wire behind her window. She does not call Jonah, and she does not call Gideon, and she does not call Ava, and then one afternoon she walks to a meeting anyway. It is a community review night at a school gym where the air smells like rubber floor and hope.
We will go line by line, and we will get bored, and we will keep going.
People clap the small clap that means we are in this together, even if it takes all evening. Mara sits in the back and writes notes that no one asked for, and then hands them to a volunteer who smiles and says thank you without looking up. This is not redemption, and it is not punishment, and it is not a movie, and it is work that waits for no hero. A teenager asks why the cameras always face their block, and the room talks until someone writes the answer on a big sheet and pins it to a wall. Gideon moves through the city with fewer handshakes than he is used to, but not none. People who liked the clinics still like the clinics because they remember pain going away in under an hour. People who read the ledger do not hate him because hate is heavy, and they have rent to pay and children to keep alive. He gives one interview to say that the right thing done the wrong way becomes the wrong thing, and he does not ask for forgiveness because he has been in politics long enough to know that the public does not mail that out on demand.
If I could start over, I would trade speed for consent and outcome for trust.
That line lands in the middle and stays there like a coin you choose not to pick up. Jonah keeps working and starts a small fund to help local reporters who cannot afford to chase long stories. He jokes that he is laundering guilt with journalism, and then says he is kidding, and then admits that he is only half kidding.
We did not burn the clinic down, and that cost me subscribers, but I sleep like a boring tree.
He laughs and closes the laptop and walks to the corner where the coffee machine gurgles like a small volcano that minds its business. He tapes a note above his desk that says, "Do no harm louder than you do the news." Ava trains young organizers to count votes at board meetings and not just bodies at protests. She teaches them how to read procurement codes like poetry, with fewer metaphors and more commas. She tells them that dignity is not a mood, and that mercy without consent is only a soft form of control.
Power lives on silence, but it also lives on speed, so we have to get better at fast truth.
The room nods, and the pens scratch, and the calendar fills. Mara takes a part-time job at a quiet nonprofit that manages grants with legal pads and pens that always work. She becomes the person who asks if the person at the end of the line read the form and liked it. This bores her in a way that feels clean. She keeps the red string folder in a box, and sometimes she opens it and sometimes she does not, and both feel like choices she can live with. When the winter comes early, she pays for 3 hotel rooms out of pocket and does not tell anyone because it is not a headline and not a policy and not a stand and just an act that kept 3 people warm for one night. Now we loop back to the first question, because stories should return to where the heart started. If the hospital wing that saved your child was built with dirty money, would you cheer? Or would you wash your hands until they bleed? Here's what Mara learned, and what I learned watching her make and unmake that night. You can cheer and then audit, and both can be honest if you do them in that order. Love the cure and price the cost, and keep the receipt in a drawer where anyone can see it. The moral is simple, and it is heavy, and you can carry it in one hand. Kindness without accounting turns into power in costume. Proximity to power multiplies your choices and never simplifies them. If you must hold the knife, count your fingerprints first. If you share the halo, find the shadow on the wall and say its name out loud. Thank you for staying with me until the end of the story. If this hit you in any way, please tap like because it tells the system to show this to people who need it. Please subscribe and ring the bell because we have more stories that cut and heal at the same time. Drop a comment with the part that stuck with you, because your take helps other people see the angles. If you want to support this channel, you can use the QR code at the bottom right or the link in the description to send a donation. In the description, you will also find links to other works from a very different series. They do not follow this story, and they do not share these characters, but they carry the same heart. I am glad you made it here, and I hope you come back for the next one. Take care of yourself tonight, and watch for the shine and the thorn when they show up in the same hand. See you in the next story.